Thank you for joining us today. Veeam and Cloudian are excited to share the work that we're doing and the solutions we're building for the service provider community. The focus here today is how to drive revenue and profit with revenue-ready services, storage services out into your customer base. So today's webinar will be presented by Brian Morris. Brian is the ISR lead, the manager for Veeam for the cloud service provider team over at Veeam. Also presenting is Glenn Haley. Glenn is the Director of Product Management here at Cloudian. The agenda for today's presentation is we're going to first talk about the challenges in the market for CSPs, talk about the revenue-ready service opportunities that we see out in the marketplace, so areas for you to go and capture additional revenue in your business. We'll talk about the solutions that Veeam and Cloudian are building together, revenue-ready solutions, so that you can deploy them and immediately start recognizing gains from them. We'll talk about the key features and functionalities of these solutions, and then end up with a little bit about Cloudian and Veeam, and then, of course, some questions and answers. So I'd like to hand it over now to Brian to kick us off. Brian?
Hey, thanks so much, Fred, and thanks for everybody for joining the webinar today. So, you know, in regards to service providers, they've got a ton of different challenges. In addition to just running a normal day-to-day business, right, with, you know, people concerns and business concerns, right, they have some specific concerns around, you know, costs of building and maintaining storage infrastructure. Right, we continue to see these costs to continue to grow, right, and it gets more and more complex every year, right? It used to just be client-server architecture, right? Now we add cloud into it, we add virtualization layers, right? It's not just A plus B equals C, you know, type of, you know, managing infrastructure for all of their different clients, right? But, you know, what are they looking for? They're looking for something that has a scalable infrastructure, right, so that they can manage multiple different customers and not have to continue to, you know, figure out what's going to be the next best thing next year, right? They've got to make sure that all their environments are secure, right, and making sure that they have multi-tenant access, making sure that their clients can access their servers, and making sure that, you know, there's complete availability of all their data. And it's got to be integrated, right? It's got to be revenue ready. It's got to be able to be deployed for one customer, for multiple customers to meet different requirements. And, you know, this is, you know, really a couple of the key things that Veeam and Cloudian can bring together in a solution. Glenn, do you want to add in a little bit about, you know, what you guys have seen around the world?
Yes, thank you, Brian. From a Cloudian standpoint, those top challenges that you mentioned, we see various challenges sort of resonate to the top depending on regions. Within the United States, we tend to see scalability somewhat be one of the most important aspects to address. Within EMEA and the UK and Germany and some of the other countries within Europe, you know, security, things like GDPR is really pressing the need for secure solutions. And then within the Asia Pac and India regions, you know, performance and accessibility seem to resonate. But in all these areas, it's really, as you mentioned, with these challenges, it's that proliferation of mobile devices as well as those IoT devices that have all that machine-generated data that is causing this incredible amount of data growth. And, you know, growth is good for business, for all of us, but at the same time, it's bad for operational efficiency, and we're all sort of stretched with regards to time and resources to their absolute limits. And, you know, MSP providers in our audience are certainly looking for solutions that can service their customers and grow with the needs of their customer businesses without any disruption. You know, security is definitely one of the top areas of concern, and regulatory requirements, ransomware, the threat of viruses, these are all major concerns. In fact, last October, one particular issue that I remember was issued by the Department of Homeland Security, and this was the TA-18-266B, and this had to do with concerns around advanced persistent threats that can specifically target MSP environments. So that ransomware, denial of service, and various malware attacks, these are all major concerns, and MSPs are really looking for this opportunity to create a safe haven with secure and reliable solutions for their customers.
Well, thanks, Glenn. And so I guess, key takeaways there is that data is going to continue to grow for the end users, and, MSPs, tend to get a lot of visibility from a lot of these different ransomware attacks and things along those nature. So it's got to be secure, it's got to be scalable, and so, let's jump right into some revenue-ready cloud storage services that we can bring together. Right, so I think, we can all agree upon that cloud backup is a new norm for backups. We're seeing this in SMB, commercial, enterprise, in all segments where many of these end-user companies are looking to utilize a managed service provider, a cloud service provider to back up their data and to give them, all the storage needs that they have, right, so that they can have their team be more strategic on other projects. Right, instead of just having a backup guy, now you can have him be your cloud infrastructure guy, right? And it's really allowing these companies to be more agile with their IT resources, right? And taking a big burden off their plate. And the other key thing on this slide too is that about 50% of the market today believe that cloud is the most effective backup medium, right? And really the main reason of that is availability. Right, we all know that tape is still alive and out there, right? But there's we could Google and we could talk about thousands of horror stories of trying to recover from tape, right? But utilizing a cloud storage solution can ensure that that data is accessible and recoverable as well. So, Glenn, why don't you talk a little bit about some of the the market and where it's going, when it comes to cloud services?
Sure. Happy to do so, Brian. So, from Cloudian standpoint, as a software-defined storage solution, we see this as a huge opportunity. All those challenges we talked about represents a big opportunity for managed service providers. And in one study from IDC back in mid-2018, this was a survey focused on cloud software and cloud infrastructure around platform as a service or storage as a service or even infrastructure as a service. And what that resulted in was a $45 billion market being represented here in 2021 for various storage-related services.
Right, that's huge, and it's something that everybody on this call can take advantage of and see how much of that $45 billion we can put into your segment and into your pockets. So, let's talk a little bit more about that, right? The cloud storage marketplace is growing at an exponential rate, right? Where are service providers making money? Right, the number one cloud use case is around backup and disaster recovery services. Veeam did this survey with ESG back in 2018 as well, and that's what we found is that the majority of people that are utilizing the cloud is around data backup and archive needs as well as disaster recovery as a service. Right, and what we're seeing is that a lot of companies are decommissioning their secondary colos, right, and just shifting that spend from to the colo providers, right, to cloud service providers, right? And we're also seeing that some other growing areas too are actually to run production workloads, right, and also become primary storage for file services. Right, so these are all areas that we can all we can build scalable solutions with, backed by Veeam and Cloudian, right, and help you guys go capture as much of this marketplace as we possibly can.
And so, Brian, I think we have a polling question for the audience.
All right. So, Glenn, do you want to kick off the poll right now for everybody?
If the audience could go to their vote tab, we have a polling question, and that polling question would allow us to sort of survey your needs. And the question is, what areas does your organization use or plan to use cloud infrastructure as a service offering? You can choose multiple answers, and we greatly appreciate your feedback there. So we'll give you a moment to choose, and we will show you the results once those survey results have been compiled.
So we got about 45 seconds for you guys to complete that, and really at the end of the day, there's a lot of opportunity for all of you all to go make money in the cloud storage arena today. These are just probably a couple of the 4 or 5 that Veeam polled on. But again, there's probably some other use cases and probably some other areas that you guys are using cloud storage in your own business and growing as well too. So really interested to see, where you guys are seeing some of the trends, from a day-to-day level, right, and see how it compares to, the overarching, surveys that, both Cloudian and Veeam have compiled.
So I think the results of our survey are coming up. Looks like our audience, most of the audience chose backup and recovery, 83%, so that's no surprise based upon some of those survey results that you spoke of, Brian.
You're exactly right, Glenn. And so, let's talk about the data protection opportunity, right? We know that, the cloud services, projected revenue cap's about $45 billion come 2022. And doing it just on the data protection side, we see it as about a $15 billion opportunity in the same time frame, right? And this is coming from a litany of different arenas, right? Because data protection really spans across all different organizations and all enterprises. And we know that the majority of enterprises have a multi-cloud approach, right? Where they may be using SaaS data for CRM or for email. They may be using another data management tool for something along the other lines. They've got to protect their end user computers with endpoint backup. All right, and of course, the backup and recovery market for the virtual infrastructure is still the majority of this. Of this capital that you all can go after. The good news is, with Veeam and Cloudian, we've got solutions that can tie into all these different arenas, right? We can back up SaaS data from Office 365. We have one of the best e-discovery tools when it goes searching through emails. IaaS backup is a growing environment for all of us on the phone here today. But backup and recovery that's really focused on a hybrid cloud model is where we see really the majority of this revenue coming from. And, we're really happy to help you guys go out and deploy and build some solutions to capture this market. So, let's talk a little bit more in depth about the Veeam and Cloudian solution itself, right, and why it's compelling to everybody on the phone today. Right, so first and foremost is that, there's multiple different revenue opportunities that you guys can build from this one solution together, right? And, we're going to assume that everybody on the phone here has a hosted environment, either in the public clouds or on premise, right? And this can be the target for many, for all of your clients that are doing backup as a service. Veeam will go do the backups locally, right? Send it offsite into your cloud. The Cloudian array will, utilize all of its many services to help you manage that customer, right, and store that data for long-term retention. Same thing can be done with disaster recovery as a service, right? Again, Veeam is going to be the data mover here, right, to where we can move the live VMs from the customer site into the production environment of this cloud service provider, right? Again, the Cloudian array can, can do a lot of the analytics on the back end to help manage the storage for that customer, right? But if they needed to fail over, we can help deliver that solution together. And then lastly, storage as a service. All right, I mentioned O365 once. Here's the second time I've said it today. Right, but at the end of the day, Microsoft is going to handle all of the email servers and keep keep the data intact up in O365, right? But they really buy into the shared responsibility model where they're going to keep the email and the servers highly available, right? But it's up to the end user, to have protection over their data. right? And that brings everybody on the phone here an opportunity to provide storage as a service for that O365 environment, right? So that you guys can, help your customers understand the shared responsibility model, as well as build them a long-term retention plan for all their email documents and email files. So if we peel the onion back just a little bit more and look deeper into this, this is essentially what a Veeam and Cloudian solution would look like. The primary storage is going to run the virtual environment for the customer, right? That's where, the production VMs are going to live. And Veeam is going to be, on the same network, and it's going to, provide the backup of that data, right? That's where you can set the retention. That's where you can set, how frequent the jobs happen. And then from there, we're going to land it on a backup storage, right? Once it's landed on a backup storage, then you all on the phone here have the option to utilize the Veeam-ready object store device, the Cloudian HyperStore device, right, to set the long-term retention and move the data from the expensive block storage, right, to S3 storage for an indefinite period of time. Glenn, anything you want to add there?
Yeah, thanks, Brian. It's this, the Cloudian HyperStore is an ideal backup target for Veeam, and that's really delivered through that integration and use of the Veeam Cloud tier. And with the Cloudian HyperStore, it really offers the ability to start small and grow limitlessly even to exabyte size environments. So the image there shows 3 nodes within a cluster. So we have the ability to start small and grow to those large environments, all while providing simple and flexible management capabilities and things like built-in data protection with erasure coding or the use of replicas. S3 API compatibility with the Veeam Cloud tier, and then also advanced features that our MSP and CSP audience would be interested in, and that includes multi-tenancy, security, native QoS in order to control things like quotas, and billing and rating capabilities to help get your services up and running to revenue quickly.
Excellent. Excellent. So, being that we've talked a little bit about the solution, what are some use cases that you guys can take to the market, in a matter of 30 days or less with us? Again, we talked about backup and data protection. I think we've covered that one pretty well. And the same thing with backup and storage as a service, right? Again, Veeam's going to be the data mover. Cloudian's going to be the long-term retention storage repository itself. All right, but what about those customers that have, virtual machines running in Azure and AWS, right, and some of the other big public clouds? Oh, that's not a limitation to us because, again, Veeam has that agnostic approach where we can back up any of those types of VMs, right? And then, again, store them in a local repository, right, to have that cross-cloud, redundancy itself. And the same thing with ransomware protection. Again, we see this happening day in and day out. Recently, I'm in Georgia. The Georgia court system got hit this past week with the ransomware, virus that has, stopped them from being able to do anything. But again, if they would have had an offline copy of their data, right, that landed on a, Cloudian HyperStore device, they could completely mitigate any of those ransom fines and, be back up and running in a matter of hours instead of weeks, if not longer, and cost them millions of dollars. So as we talk about some of the key features and functionalities, I'm going to turn it over to Glenn, who can talk really deep and wide about, some of the value-added benefits that Cloudian offers.
So with Cloudian, as I mentioned before, it's an ideal backup target or an archive target, and it really is simple to deploy. It's modular. If you need to grow the environment, if you need to add capacity or even add performance, you just add another node to the cluster. And extremely cost-effective, about 70% less cost than using a dedicated backup appliance, and about 100 times faster than access to tape media for archiving environments. And it's really built around the Cloudian's object storage as the underlying technology is really what's based on all cloud storage systems. And it's really based on an S3 native interface. So we, as a object storage device, are going to mimic and act just like you would come to expect from an AWS S3 environment. This ensures compatibility with any and all services that you might be running in the cloud. And with an object storage solution being a flat hierarchical namespace, this lends itself well to the scalability aspect, where you can simply grow the system into even exabyte environments. From a policy standpoint, it's all bucket level policies and controls, even within your access controls and how you configure your data protection schemes. And it's cloud ready. On the back end, if you want to auto tier into any of the public clouds, we support all of the major cloud providers with both a hybrid approach with an on-prem and cloud tier, as well as a multi-cloud ready approach where you can run software instances both in the cloud as well as appliance instances on-prem. So from a key feature standpoint that our audience would be most interested in, Cloudian is a software-defined company, a software-defined storage offering, and it can be deployed both as a hardware appliance or software running as a VM on your customer's own hardware or in your own data center, of course. And it's that Amazon S3 API capability that ensures that complete compatibility using HTTP REST as an API, so that any of existing S3 development tools or libraries, they're all going to be supported. The horizontal scalability allows you to use commodity off-the-shelf hardware. HyperStore system can scale up to thousands of nodes in the cluster. And then the other aspect is something from Gartner, one of the leading analysts, and they have what they call the Peer Insights, and this is based on customer ratings where Cloudian is listed as the highest recommended object storage solution on the market today, with a 4.8 star rating and a 97% recommendation. Now, multi-tenancy is probably one of the most important aspects when you start talking about a managed service provided environment using the solution. So secure multi-tenancy is really about HyperStore providing the capability of securely having multiple users reside on a single shared infrastructure. And this is important because data for each user is logically separated from other users' data, and you cannot access that data by any other means, or any other user won't have those access permissions granted to them to access that data. So separation is key, of course, with multi-tenancy. Next is group support. And as any enterprise or work group, they can share a HyperStore system, and each group member can have a dedicated storage space. Groups can be managed by their designated group administrator with the appropriate access control rights. So the read and write access controls, these are supported at a per bucket or a per object level, so you have that granularity, and those objects can also be exposed via public URLs for any regular access by users with appropriate permissions, all configurable with expiration periods. Now, QoS is the ability to control and set quotas, storage quotas, as well as usage rates. And this can be limited on a per group or a per user basis. And then reporting and billing, which is very important to realize your business model. And the HyperStore system can support usage-based reporting on a system-wide, group-wide, or even an individual basis. Last but not least, encryption would ensure confidentiality of the data so that you can store data at rest with the confidence that it's securely protected. The billing and reporting aspect is also a key area, and just to highlight what you see, there's a couple of screenshots of what's called the Cloudian Management Console. It's a very easy to use console, And HyperStore maintains comprehensive service usage data for groups and users on the system. And you as an MSP can take this usage data, which is provided and protected by a replication. It serves as the foundation for that service billing functionality within Cloudian. You can designate rate plans, and these rate plans can be based on per gigabyte usage of how much data is actually being stored, or you can base it on how much data has actually been uploaded or even downloaded, or you can even get more granular with respect to the particular HTTP RESTful API call, per 10,000 API gets or puts, or even deletes. So you have a granular ability to base your reporting and billing. Quality of service would be another area that we get a lot of questions typically from our managed service provided type of customers. And the Cloudian HyperStore system supports user level, group level QoS settings. So you can place upper limits on service usage by individual users, and with group QoS settings, you can also place an aggregate service usage by the entire user group. And so with this, it gives you a granular set of ability to control storage quota by the number of kilobytes or the number of objects perhaps, peak HTTP request rates, very granular ability to control those storage quotas and usage levels. And then security would be another area that's very important. And with the Cloudian HyperStore, we support certificate-based access controls, so X509 certificates that can be managed by certificate authority. And then, of course, data in flight is protected, the secure access to the console through HTTPS and the use of SSL TLS secure protocols. We have role-based access, both for the users, groups, and administrators, complete audit logging for all activity so that you can keep an active record of the activity that has happened on the system. And then the ability to control data center or even regional locality. Worm is supported to help to mitigate the threats of ransomware because of versioning and immutability, the inability to change content within a prescribed time frame. And AES is supported if you want to protect data at rest with even advanced encryption standard 256-bit key links. And then an open RESTful API to manage the entire system. From a deployment standpoint, high availability is important, and the HyperStore system provides a fully distributed peer-to-peer architecture and no single point of failure. So you can set up distributed sites with replicas or erasure coding distributed amongst multiple sites. You also have the ability to configure auto-tiering. So if you wanted to use one of the public clouds, then you could tier content up into either Microsoft Azure, AWS, or Google Cloud platform, and then multi-cloud, where you could have both an on-prem or your customers could support a cloud instance all contained in a multi-node cluster with unified data management. And then last but not least here, we will talk a little bit about VMware integration. Recently, VMware and Cloudian jointly announced a combined and engineered solution where the Cloudian HyperStore is the first object storage platform supported by VMware's Virtual Cloud Director. Now this integration occurred through some API development with VMware's object storage extension. That's an interface that they added into the VCD where Cloudian storage is seen as an S3 compatible object store. And so all management is completely handled within VCD, the Virtual Cloud Director, using this S3 interface. So the user interface for tenants and for admins and single sign-on within VCD, role-based access controls, the ability to provision your storage and create policies, import and export your VMs, etc. Supported in 9 different languages. And Brian, I know that you've got a great deal of experience and a partnership of your own with VMware. So would you like to comment?
Absolutely. Without VMware, we probably all wouldn't be talking about this today. So it's without VMware, they've done some, they've revolutionized the virtual infrastructure marketplace, right, and has really built a platform for all of us to grow on. About 2012, Veeam integrated with vCloud Director specific for service providers, right, as they were looking for a tool that integrated with vCloud Director, right, which is, typically their infrastructure as a service, right, go-to-market hypervisor, right, and they wanted something that could, that can understand, right, the different fence-off environments, right, as well as the different resources within each, vCloud instance itself, right? So, we built that integration then, and we've continued to expand on it year after year, right? And so now for, you IS shops out there, right, you can, if you didn't know it, you do now, right? You can back up that infrastructure with Veeam, right? And now with Cloudian's S3 API that ties into vCloud Director, right, you guys have the ability to store it in Cloudian for indefinite periods of time. Back to you, Glenn.
Thank you, Brian. All right, so we'll talk about Cloudian and Veeam a little bit to provide some company overviews, and I think we start with Veeam.
Excellent, right? So, as I was stating on the last slide, right, Veeam, we got our start in the marketplace as we saw a need for a specific backup utility for VMware environments. And that's how we got started. For those of you that remember VMworld back in, 2009 or 2010, right, we tried to paint the place green with Veeam t-shirts, right, so that people would understand where we are. Luckily, a lot of those people that started with utilizing Veeam back in those days have grown their careers, right? And some of those people are, right, the managed service providers, right, and a lot of the people helping extend private clouds to other customers, right? And that really is where our integration with vCloud Director came in 2012. We continued a super fast clip of growth, right? From 28 to now, which is 2019, we just broke $1 billion as a software company, right? And now our whole forward momentum is all about cloud mobility, right? We know that the majority of enterprises have a multi-cloud strategy, right? But data protection is still a challenge that everybody still needs to address. And, no matter what cloud they're using, no matter what, they still got to keep handle of their own data, right? And that's where Veeam comes in, because we are that data mover, right? And allow to back up, different environments and store it in a single repository. And we look to continue to grow. And, the only way that we have grown is through the channel and through partners like you all on the phone today, right? So, really, our team's very interested in seeing what we can do to continue to grow with you guys. So, one of the key features that we released here on our latest release of Veeam Backup and Replication 9.5 Update 4 is a native object storage integration, which allows us to integrate with Cloudian. The beauty of this solution, right, is it's, an S3-based technology, right, for unlimited capacity. Any backup files, they got to land on block storage first, right, but it's really the retention, right, and how do you maximize your storage investments. And it's real easy when you have an S3 integration, because now we can land it on Cloudian and really keep that low total cost of ownership, for long-term retention for any clients. This tool is integrated into the backup and replication console, where it's just a setting that you go and turn on for the Veeam Cloud tier. You set the retention of saying, hey, after 45 days, I want everything to move to the cloud tier, and Veeam will do that behind the scenes. And there's no vendor lock-in, right? We want to help you all maximize, what type of storages that you guys utilize, right? So we've got integration with many of the primary storage vendors, right? And really allows you to utilize that storage for running production workloads, and then using something like Cloudian on the back end for long-term retention. So Glenn, why don't you talk us a little bit about Cloudian as a company?
Oh, happy to do so, yes. So Cloudian, founded in 2001, our flagship product is called the Cloudian HyperStore, and it is an S3 API compatible storage solution. In fact, we're the industry's most compatible S3 object storage solution on the market, and we're integrated, of course, with vCloud tier that we just heard about, as well as we mentioned, VMware's virtual cloud director. We've got a rich set of managed service providers and cloud service providers as a customer set, and it's really based upon some of the features and functionality that we've been highlighting today during the webinar. It's that 100% native API, that policy-based data protection schemes, the ability to support hybrid and cloud tiering, and then some of the advanced features around multi-tenancy QoS billing and reporting that we've spoke of. Just a short set of mutual MSP and CSP customers are listed here that Veeam and Cloudian share. And so back to you, Brian, because many of these are your customers as well.
Yeah, absolutely. These have been some of our fastest growing partners and been doing some very next generation stuff with us. So, guys like Phoenix Snap, Rico, NTT Data, right, are some of the big giants on there. And then, right, there's some of the more regional focused ones like Fed Hill, Veristore, Caligo Cloud, right, that, really have a handle on, those, the customers in their different respective regions. At the end of the day, right, they're looking to be as competitive as possible with their offerings to their customers, and having the award-winning backup solution to help them cover any backup needs for their customers, and the partnership with Cloudian for the long-term low cost of ownership for storage. It just it makes a beautiful marriage together. So if we can, leave everybody on the phone here with one takeaway, right? How you can go talk to your boss about Veeam and Cloudian. This is it right here. Veeam and Cloudian together provide an end-to-end, cost-effective and scalable enterprise-grade data protection solution, enabling extreme data durability at high performance. All right. End of the day, we're going to help you guys build the best cohesive solution possible, right, to handle any customer requirement.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Brian and Glenn. Excellent presentation. Audience, I hope this was of value to you all, and we are definitely looking forward to working closely with you to, again, bring value to you and ultimately to your customers through revenue-ready solutions. Please do reach out to veeam@cloudian.com. Again, that's veeam@cloudian.com to schedule some time for us to come in and further discuss solutions that are pinpointed at your direct business. Thank you for joining us today.